right, let's get started. So today we're going to be learning about strings and string methods. Here's your video contents. We're going to learn about what a string is and a couple other different functions we can use to manipulate string values. And then we're going to practice everything at the end. So what is a string? In Python, a string is a value made up of one or more characters, surrounded by single, double, or even triple quotation marks. If you look at the variable on the right called example, you'll see that we assigned a string value to it because we surrounded it in double quotation marks. When we print the variable example down at the bottom, we get the string value with no quotation marks around it. So take a look at these two string variables. They're both called string1, but one variable is capitalized. In Python, variable names are case sensitive. So these are considered to be two different variables. We got to be careful about that when we're naming our variables. Python gives us the freedom of using double quotation marks, single quotation marks, or even triple quotation marks when we're writing our string values. You'll see that we can print string variables the same way that we do any other variables, and it'll print out the string value. When writing strings, one of the more important functions we can use is the length function. The length function is a built-in Python function that identifies and displays how many characters make up a string. When I say built-in, I mean it's already built into the Python interpreter, just like the print function that we're familiar with. To use the length function, you just have to pass your argument, which in our case is a variable, into the parentheses portion of the length function, like we did down here. I have two examples on the right to explain this. We assign a string value, hello, to our string variable called greeting, and we want to see how many characters make up this string value. So we pass the greeting variable into the length function, and we'll see that it outputs the number 5 because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters that make up this string. We also have another example down here. I'm happy for you is made up of 18 characters. A string indice is how Python identifies where each character in the string is, and it starts with 0. We can access or analyze each item in the string based off its indices. So for example, in the greeting variable down here, I assign the value hello. If I want to do something with the first character, H, in this string value, I would type out the greeting variable, and in square brackets next to it, I will put the 0 indice, because the 0 indice in this value is an H. And you'll see when I type out greeting square brackets 0, it outputs H. So that's how you access an individual item in a string value. We can also access the last value in a string by using the -1 indice. So if you want to print out the last character, you would use the print function, and inside you would put greeting square brackets -1, and that would print out your last character. If you're wondering why this has quotation marks and why these outputs do not, that's because here we're calling straight from the interpreter, and here we're printing the characters out. So when we call these, it gives us the string values. When we print, it just prints out what we want. So now that we know what a string is and how to write them, let's learn some different ways of operating on strings. String concatenation is the process of adding two strings together. We should remember that Python counts empty spaces as characters as well. So look at the example on the right. We're adding the two string variables together, these two values, you smell. We're adding their two variables together, and then when we ask for the output, we get you smell concatenated together. We can also do other operations on strings as well, such as multiplication. In the example below, you'll see that we assign the capital letter A to the variable called character. And when we go down here to multiply the variable character by 3, we get the output of 3 capital letter A's, or triple A, as most of us know it. And down here, you'll see that concatenating a string and an integer doesn't work. Python gives us an error, which I suggest you pause and read. We fixed this issue by using the string function right here to convert the number 3 into a string, and then we concatenate the two string values together, like we did right here. In Python, we use escape sequences to do special things like add a new line or a tab or a backslash to a string value. You'll see in the example on the right that we're trying to write a stock list for our stonk bronies that are trying to make money out there. We write a variable called stonk list, and we assign a string value, and right inside of the string value we can include our escape sequences in order for our output to look a little bit better. So for example, you'll see that when we print our stonk list now, because we included a new line and a tab, we turned this into a much better looking output. It looks more like a list now. String methods are other ways of manipulating our string values. We can use the title function to titleize a string value, like we did in this example. We assigned the value Dante's derivatives to this variable called name, and we used the title function by typing name.title, and it turned this name variable into a title. It capitalized some of the letters. We can also use the uppercase function or the lowercase function, and you'll see what those do right here. The uppercase function just capitalizes your entire string value, while the lowercase function lowercases your entire string value. We can use whitespace stripping functions to strip the whitespace from our string values. So for example, down here, we have this variable called number, which we assigned this string value with 1, 2, 3, 4 in it, but you'll notice that there is space before and after the number. If we just want to strip that space out, we'll type number.strip, and we'll use the strip function to take out all that extra space that we didn't need. Now let's practice. I'm going to open up Python, and let's practice writing strings. String 1, I'll assign it a string in double quotation marks. This is a string. And in Python, you can also write strings. String 2 in single quotation marks. This is also a string. String 3, we'll write it in triple quotation marks. We don't usually use these too much in Python, but sometimes you might need to automate an email or something like that. This is a multi-line string. And we end it in triple quotation marks. Now let's try and print that string. You notice that it's on multiple lines. Let's practice some of the conversion methods. I showed you guys in the video, I showed you guys how to convert a number to a string. So let's do that. Number is equal to 3. I love the number 3. Let's try and convert that number into a string. So all we would have to do is use the string function and turn it into a string. We'd put the number variable into the string function, and it'll output 3 as a string. And we can change the value of that variable as well. If we just write number is equal to number as a string. And now when we call number, it's a string. Let's try and turn a string into a number. So let's say we have this string character 1 as a string, right? So if we call it right now, string will be a 1 as a string. Let's turn it into a number. All we would have to do, and I'm going to change the value of this variable now. This is one way of doing it. We would say integer. You can turn it into an integer. Let's see what the value of string is now. It's an integer, or you can turn it into a float as well. So pretty much what we're doing is just passing arguments or variables into functions, and we're playing around with the ideas of functions and passing methods on strings. So let's check and see the value of string now. And we notice it's a float value now. So that's kind of how you convert values into other values. You can convert strings into integers, integers into strings, floats into integers, vice versa. Let's learn how to concatenate some of these. So let's say we have message is equal to hello, and message 2 is equal to goodbye. Actually, we'll say goodbye. Let's add these two, or concatenate. We're going to concatenate these two string values together. So what we would do is take their variables and use the add sign, the add symbol. And you'll see it outputs these two string values, hello and goodbye, concatenated together. So let's learn about indices a little bit. So I'm going to write this this long message, or this long string, and name it long string. Actually, we'll just say hello peoples 1 2 3. So long string is equal to hello peoples 1 2 3. Okay, so let's access the first. I want to access that H, and I need to use something called an indice in Python. So what I would do is write out the variable, and I would use these square brackets. The first value, the first indice value in Python is always a 0. So if I want to access the H, I would write long string square brackets 0, and you'll see it outputs the H. Now let's say I want to access the last character 3. I would write long string square brackets -1. Let's also learn about how long these characters are. So earlier we learned about the length function. So we have that long string there. I want to know how long it is. Long string, it's hello peoples 1 2 3. I'm going to use something called the length function. So let's say I want to see how many values this string makes up. So I would write print length long string. So I'm passing this argument to this function. Oh, it has 18 characters, including this space. Let's learn about escape sequences. I really like the example I used in the presentation, the stock list that we used, but we'll just make it easy, and we'll make a variable called food list, and we're going to make a string value here. This is going to help us remember what to get at the grocery store. All we're going to do is new line, tab. All we need is eggs. Okay, this time all we need is eggs. We got lucky. New line and tab. Just write exactly what I'm writing. Food list. And it's going to look, the output will look a lot better than it looks right now, but these are the escape sequences, new line and tab. And then when you press enter, it stored that into the variable. Now let's print the variable, food list. Oh, food list, all we need is eggs, perfect. It looks kind of like a list, and we could have added other stuff into it. Let's practice using some of these string methods that we learned about earlier, like lowercase, uppercase, title, and strip. Let's practice those. So let's bring back that long string that we had earlier, long string, and we're going to rename it. Hello, I love you. Now, let's capitalize everything there. So what we would do is write long string, and we're using the string method on this long string value that we have here. So we write the variable name dot uppercase, and we use the upper function. Oh, what do you know? It gave us a whole bunch of uppercase values of the string value that I wrote earlier. Let's try and lowercase these. Long string, we're going to use the lower method on the string value. And it turned everything into lowercase values. Now let's turn it into a title. Kind of just looks like the same way. Well, it capitalized every first letter, so it's titleizing it. And lastly, let's try to strip some space from a message that has way too much space in it. So let's say we have this message here. Hey there. And it's got all this weird space in it that we don't want. So yeah, I don't want any of that space. I would use the strip method on it. So we're going to take our message and we're going to use the strip method. And look, it took all the extra space. And there's also, you can take the space out of the left side specifically if you want, L strip. And you see there's still that space on the right side. Or you can take space off of the right side if you want, R strip. There's still space on the left side. Hey guys, if you haven't already done this, go to python.org and look at all the different string methods that you can find there. There's a couple of them. And of course, this is in the documentation portion of the Python 3 section. Hey guys, I hope you liked the video. I hope you learned something about strings. Leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and have a great day.